This is the Mended Paths Podcast with Chadwick Hayward, episode 23.
Welcome to MendedPaths.com. Let's get back to bed.
Hi, Path Menders. Thanks so much for tuning in to the 23rd episode of the Mended Paths Podcast. This week, I'm speaking with Heather Goodwin. Heather has struggled with her weight all her life. She has tried all manner of diets and has lost over 100 pounds on 3 separate occasions. At her heaviest, Heather weighed 436 pounds and had the many health issues that go along with being that heavy. Today, Heather is over 200 pounds into her journey to lose 300 pounds. Listen as she shares her story of how she was able to mend her path and finally get back to better. Hi, Heather. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for asking me to be on your show.
Oh, it's great. You have such an incredible story.
Oh, thank you. It's been a long journey.
So you were telling me backstage that you have been trying diets for as long as you can remember, essentially. Do you want to maybe take us back to the beginning and tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I know I was born at my ideal weight, and that is pretty much the last time I ever saw it. So I was a cute, chubby baby, and, it's adorable when you're a toddler. But by the time I got to elementary school, I had a new title, which is just the fattest girl in the class. And I was always the fattest girl in pretty much all of my classes all through school. And, I had loving parents that had not a clue of what to do for me. But they put me on my first diet when I was 11 years old. And I think I've been on pretty much, if you can name a diet, I've probably done it from the cabbage soup to Atkins to raw vegan. If there's a way to take off weight, I have definitely tried it with varying degrees of success. So I've taken off, I'm not even kidding, 40 to 60 pounds. I've done at least 20 times. And this is my third time of taking off more than 100 pounds.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, how there are some people that, they get the plant-based message and they run with it and they take off all their weight and they live happily ever after. That's not me. That's not my story. I am perfectly imperfect in every way. So, and I want people to know that it's okay, if you take a straight path to get there or you take the long way around the mountain, as long as you keep moving and keep trying and persistently striving, you will get there also.
Yeah. So tell us about some of those earlier experiences where you did initially have success. Like what types did you see the most success with, I guess, in your earlier years?
Sure. Well, starting with college, I read a book called Diet for a New America by John Robbins, and it blew my mind and turned me on to being plant-based. So, but I became a vegetarian at that point because I was really hopelessly addicted to food. I was a food addict. I was a compulsive eater. And so it definitely helped. And I probably took off, 60 or 80 pounds just from doing that. And but, I still had a lot of health problems from being overweight, but also I think from the dairy and the meat and all of that. So, gosh, I was a member of TOPS for a very long time, which is Take Off Pounds Sensibly. And it's a lot like Weight Watchers. It probably would have worked a lot better had we not all gone out to eat Chinese food after the meetings. But, I made very serious attempts. I'm joking somewhat, but it was the defining factor in my life. Like I said, being the fat girl all through school and being bullied and, then just having such poor self-esteem that maybe I didn't make the best choices in my life, as far as relationships. And I wasn't able to be the mom that I wanted to be when my kids were little. By the time my daughter was born is when I went over 300 pounds. And so that makes me sad when I think about what it must have been like to have a mom who was that big and couldn't do everything that I wanted to do with the kids, or if my kids got teased at school. All of that is just really painful to me now, and just makes me so grateful to be on the path that I am now.
So when you said you had lots of success at times, but then obviously you would have gained the weight back if you were able to lose 100 pounds more than once. What made you fall off the wagon?
I think it's something that is really common with people that have, I will say, more than 100 pounds to go. It just takes a long time to get there. And, even the concerted effort that I've made just very consistently now, it has been over 2 years just to get, I'm 228 pounds down, but it just takes a long time. And if you think about all the things that can happen in that long of a period of time that can set you, off your path, that's what would happen is I would just lose steam. And a lot of times before I figured out that I really was a food addict, and specifically a refined carbohydrate addict. So my big triggers are sugar in any form and flour. Okay. And so while I was still including those in my diet, it always felt like I was hanging on by my fingertips, because I may not have been eating the food, but I was thinking about the food, dreaming about the food, feeling bad that I couldn't have the food, pining for the food. So it was never a sense of peace like I have now with a more stable, healed brain. So that's one of the things that makes me feel like this is different. But yeah, if you think about people who say, I lost 20 pounds, and in 6 weeks, sometimes I would lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks, but it just is it's such a high mountain to climb that you get tired and you get discouraged, and a holiday comes. For me, it was always the holidays. It was just a really hard time, just constantly confronted with temptation from the beginning of, before Halloween all the way through to the new year.
And so that would just throw you off course. And then by the time the new year came, you were back up.
And, I went through a lot of stuff. I was a single mom from the time my kids were 2 years old and 2 weeks old. So I was a single mom from that point on. And I was also later on taking care of my parents, who were both dying of lifestyle diseases. And that has made a big impression on me, but I was taking care of everybody but me. And I felt so bad. And one of the only things that would make me feel better would be to eat. I was medicating with food. And, when there's not a lot of money or a lot of support, it's an easy thing to grab for comfort. And until I learned how to comfort myself and love myself in other ways, that was what I kept going back to.
Okay. And so these other times that you lost weight, did you find that your medical issues you were having were reduced or resolved at all?
When I went raw vegan in 2010, I took off 140 pounds. Oh, wow. And it was magic as far as my health. Before that, I had diabetes. I had high blood pressure. I had to take 3 different blood pressure medications, and my blood pressure was still high. I had cholesterol that was over 400, triglycerides that were just as high, and I used a CPAP to keep me from stopping breathing in the middle of the night, and dying. I was really a mess, but the defining factor in my life at that time was pain. I don't think I had slept well in 5 years because every position just hurt. I was just constantly in pain, and I was taking ibuprofen every single day. I took so much anti-inflammatory, that I gave myself a hole in my stomach and my esophagus, and I thought that I was having a heart attack. And so when I went raw vegan, I finally got relief from all of that, and it was seriously like a miracle. I no longer, my diabetes cleared up. I had no more pain. My asthma went away. My skin got clear because I had really bad acne and eczema, and found out that was from the dairy, and it just was like a miracle. And I just was preaching the gospel of raw vegan for a while because it was such a healing path for me. And I just felt like I came back alive. And that's one thing I always want to encourage people is, you could feel so much better. When I see a really large person, I know what society says about that person, that they think that they're, weak-willed, or that they're, lazy, or maybe they're not intelligent enough to make good choices about their health, or, all of the stereotypes that people have. I just see a person in pain. I can look at a person and I'm like, wow, you are in some massive physical pain, not to mention the psychological pain that you're going through.
Well, and the odds are stacked against them.
Right. And there I was trading, years of my life for Snickers ice cream bars. And it's not a good trade. It is not a good trade.
No. Quality
of life and length of life, and just being free of that compulsion now.
Yeah. So what was your impetus back in 2010 to go raw vegan?
It was the funniest thing. So I have a friend, and she was visiting from the Seattle area, and she wanted to go to this particular restaurant in Portland called the Blossoming Lotus, where it was all raw at that time. They now have cooked vegan too, but she really wanted to eat there because she was a raw vegan. And I just pictured raw bread dough and raw meat. And I was like, this is the most insane thing I can think of. But I really wanted to meet with her. And so I'm like, sure, literally thinking to myself that I would find a fast food place on the way home.
Oh my goodness.
And so I went to this place, and they had a live sampler platter, raw food, live food. Sampler platter, and I tried all kinds of things, and it blew my little mind because it was so good. It was just, when you don't cook things like garlic, or just all the flavors were so fresh and so vibrant, and it was delicious. And I'm like, you're telling me that this is good for you. And so I went home and just Googled everything that I could find about raw food. And I found a really great website called Raw Food Rehab. And man, I was all in. It was, I'm like, gosh, I could seriously eat this way. And when you're eating raw cheesecake and the raw nachos and just all this stuff, it became like a challenge to me. How can I make a raw vegan version of everything that I love? And so that did it for me. And it was really awesome. The thing that I know now is that I was eating, way too much fat, and because I loved the avocados, I loved the oil, I loved, the nuts. And so I was eating a really high fat raw vegan diet, some people might call it like a gourmet raw. But, it worked for me at the time because what I was going from was fast food 3 times a day. So
it was definitely a step in the right direction for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's one thing I always tell people is go plant-based. Start by going plant-based. And, if you have to be on vegan junk food to get you off of your SAD diet or whatever, that's okay. That's a transition.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to want to clean it up, but just go plant-based to start. And if you are a food addict like me, and that you are, then I really, really encourage people to try cutting out the sugar and the flour, because what I found was what I had always thought was a character flaw, or that I was weak-willed, or, just that constant of why can't I make myself do what I, in my intelligence, know to do, I found out that was because the food is addictive, and it's no accident. They make it, the food manufacturers make it to hook us. And I have a really sensitive brain that gets hooked really easily and really thoroughly. And as long as I'm off sugar, I can be off sugar.
Yeah.
But the minute I get a hold of some, then it starts to call to me again. But the great thing is, if you can get off of everything and get it out of your system, it will stop calling you.
Yeah, your body will adapt to a new normal.
Yes, exactly. And that is a miracle, that someone can wave a chocolate chip cookie under my nose and I go, I don't really want that. I'm sure it would taste good, but I don't want it, and get that out of my face.
Yeah.
Whereas before I would, I might say no to it in front of you and then sneak and have it for the rest, have to go home and make a whole batch of Toll House and eat them myself. So
I see.
Just very different.
So how long did being a raw food vegan last? Because it sounds like you're not entirely raw now.
No. And so what happened is that I became a full-time caregiver for my mom. I went and moved back home to take care of her through the last stages of her life. And my mom was raised on, Southern comfort food, and she was dying. And I was like, you know what? You're a Make-A-Wish kid. You get whatever you want. And so I used that as an excuse to eat whatever I wanted, because, of course, I was in a lot of pain, too. And so, I got off of the raw path. I kept trying to get back on it. But what I found was that in the incarnation of it that I was doing, it wasn't working for me anymore. And so now, while I eat a high percentage of raw food, I eat, for instance, a pound of leafy greens every single day. That's a lot. That's one of those, family size, big boxes of salad greens. I'll eat one of those every day. So I definitely eat raw food, and I love fruit still. But I now have added in some things that aren't raw but are very good for you. For instance, beans and legumes. One thing that the longest lived people in the world have in common is that they eat a lot of beans in various kinds. I also eat sweet potatoes that are cooked. And I'll have whole grains like oat groats or brown rice. And, those things help keep me satisfied so that I can stay on it. So I'm not constantly hungry or feeling kind of hollow, because without the nuts and the oils and the avocados and things that I was eating a lot of when I was a raw vegan, when I took those things away because it was no longer helping me lose weight, and some people suggested go ahead and try the low-fat, high-carb raw vegan, I just couldn't stay on it. It just wasn't perfect for me. I do think that it's a great stage to pass through, and it is a really healing diet. But I hardly know anybody that is still a raw vegan. I can think of even a few YouTubers that are, and then everybody that I know personally, we kind of feel like we passed through that stage, like that it was great for healing and it was awesome, served its purpose. But most people add back some cooked food at some point.
Yeah, cooked food is in general more calorically dense, so just eating the appropriate quantity of calories on a raw food diet can be challenging in itself.
Exactly. And see, that was never a problem for me because I had so much weight to go. But it did come to a point where I probably from compliance, I wasn't staying with it perfectly. But it also, when I still continued to eat the nuts and the avocados and things like that, I was having trouble taking off more weight with it. It was as though I had gone as far as I could go with it and I needed to try something different. So everybody's different. And any plant-based diet that you can stay on and that, is helpful for you, I just have nothing but support for people that want to try something.
Yeah. Well, the standard American diet is so poor in every aspect. So any step away from there is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. It's just poison. That's the way I think of it now. I am unexceptional now in that I will not eat even a bite of that because I consider it to be poison and because I'm so guarding and protective of my abstinence. I'm finally on a good path. I have this calm, stable brain. My dopamine receptors are growing back because they've done a lot of studies that show that the brains of people who are addicted to those simple, refined carbohydrates look just like a person that's addicted to drugs. Their same parts of their brain are, affected. And so by eating a healthful plant-based diet, I'm actually healing my brain. And that is why I'm able to be in control. And, that part of me that was so addicted to everything is calm and stable now. And I have such a peace.
So when you started taking care of your mom,
yes,
and so you started eating more of that comfort foods, did your medical issues resurface at that point, or?
They really did. And I think I went and I started regaining weight, and I had very much of a diet mentality that I'm either on a diet and I'm 100% on, or if I take one bite out of line, then, psychologists actually call it the what the hell effect. I'm sorry if cussing.
Hell is not a cuss word.
There you go. But it really is. Psychologists actually call it that. And it's, I was trying to do this thing and I made a tiny mistake. And so I must now eat my face off because I'm going to be back on the diet tomorrow, and all bets are off. What do I want to have? And that is another thing that I've really mastered, I guess, or at least I pray that I have, is that I can now say, that wasn't ideal, but I am able to resume and get right back on. Like the next bite, I have little mantras that I say to myself, like next bite healthy, that's poison. I don't eat poison. I eat food. And I have a really strong distinction in my mind between what is poison and what is food to me. And it really helps me to stay on the path because if you think of one of my very favorite foods was pizza with everything on it, right? All the meats and cheeses and stuff like that. And even if you were horribly addicted to a pizza, if I took a can of, Raid bug killer and sprayed it all over the pizza, you're still not going to eat it. No matter how good it looks or how good it smells, just knowing that it's poison should deter you, right? And so that is a way that, I can think about when I get those cravings, I just think of that as, it's cheesy, but my inner child is like asking for something, but I need to protect her. I need to protect us from poison. And so it really is a good way to keep you on the path, even when you're tempted. Let's just think of that stuff as not food, because it's not. And it's, it's Frankenstein's food. It's made in plants, and there's scientists trying to make it more addictive. And Chadwick, one of the things I'd love to tell people is just their fat is not their fault. It is not your fault, and it is not a character flaw. It's just a brain sensitivity, and someday people are going to prove this. I believe it. There's already research going on, but we have so much shame and pain on so many levels for being really heavy. It is just devastating.
I think we're going to look back in 50 or 100 years at this time, and our descendants are just going to shake their heads.
I really think so.
They're going to look at this period kind of like we look at prevalent tobacco use 50 years ago, right?
And exactly. And just, just like you shouldn't have waited for your doctor to stop smoking in the 50s. Some people, they would go to their doctor smoked. If your doctor hasn't gone plant-based, to me, that's a sign that your doctor doesn't keep up with the latest research and doesn't know what the optimum diet is for human beings. Maybe you need a different doctor. And the same thing with your dietitian, or your personal trainer. There is clearly a diet that makes people live longer, and that diet is a plant-based diet. So,
yeah. So what got you back on board after the setback with your mom there?
Yes. So I was taking care of mom, and mom was in the last stages of her life. And she asked me to take care of myself, and she actually made me promise. And she said, you know what, I'm not going to be here to take care of you. And you need to promise me that when I go, you will not let yourself fall apart. And I made that promise to my mom. And getting a little choked up, but I am so grateful that she asked that of me, because no matter what has happened since then, and again, I haven't been perfect by any means, I have definitely had setbacks and relapses, but I can never give up. I promised my mom, I promised myself, so that got me back on the path. And January 1st, 2015, it was a New Year's resolution. I was back up to about 361 pounds. That's exactly what I was at. And there's something magic to me about a fresh start. I love me a New Year's resolution. I know people scoff at them and they say, only 19% of people are still keeping their New Year's resolution as of Martin Luther King Day. They say even by, that early in the year, people are already done. But for me, it was the fresh start that I needed. And I had that promise to my mom, and I got started again. And then that year I was able to take off 125 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And I started out the year back to raw vegan because, that's what I kept going back to. And somebody told me about Chef AJ. She is a vegan chef and has a weight loss program that she advocates for that is specifically for food addicts. And that sounded like it was right up my alley. And so I joined that group, and I have found it to be so helpful. And it led to what I eat now, which is, I say it's an unprocessed, whole food, plant-based diet, which is a very big mouthful. But basically, I eat fruits and vegetables. I eat things like whole grains, specifically just oats and brown rice myself, because one of the things I had was some autoimmune stuff, some rheumatoid arthritis, and it just seems to be the I just seem to be sensitive to a lot of things. So I keep it to quinoa, brown rice, and sweet potatoes and oatmeal, or like oats. Usually oat groats instead of. So the more whole food a food is, that's what I opt for. So that's why I say I eat the oat groat rather than the more processed oatmeal, although it's great. But I definitely don't eat any flour at all. So no pasta, no, bread or anything like that. I don't eat sugar, and I don't eat sugar substitutes because those are actually even worse for you than sugar.
And by that, you obviously mean added sugar because fruit has sugar.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. So fruits are great. And that's, I like how Chef AJ says it. She says, it's the whole fruit and nothing, the whole fruit and nothing but the fruit. And I even try to avoid, not everybody has to, but I even will avoid like eating too many dates or something like that, just because it seems to trigger the sugar addict in me if something is too sweet or too yummy. And I just keep my food really simple. We don't eat any oil, and that comes from Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn's research about how oil is very damaging for your endothelial cells in your heart. And I have no idea what that means, but
endothelial, they're the cells that line your arteries. So all your veins, your vascular system. So if you eat oil, that gets inflamed, and then it can essentially build plaque there, and then that can lead to strokes and coronary heart disease and all that terrible stuff.
Well, thank you for the awesome explanation. Sometimes I have respect for so many of these really amazing plant-based doctors. I love Dr. Greger, especially nutritionfacts.org. And I have, just tons of respect for all these, the pioneers, all these doctors that are telling people how to actually heal themselves. And I'm free of so many prescriptions now. I took 3 different hypertension medicines. I took a statin. I took a medicine for my triglycerides. I had another one for my migraines. Like I said, I lived on ibuprofen. I was just a slave to the pharmacy and the pill bottle. And the thing is, none of those things make it any better.
Yeah.
They relieve one symptom and cause another. I had horrible joint and muscle problems from the statin. Just had bad reactions to almost everything that I took. And I now it's just the food. It's just, I feel like every plant is medicine, it's like God put medicine all over this whole planet, and almost every single plant food is good for you, and pretty much anything that's not a plant, it seems to be really bad for you. So
yeah, I think there are lots of plants out there that you probably shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
But let's clarify. Don't just go out in the woods and
No, I didn't mean that you should eat them either. But I do think of plants as medicine, and sometimes the difference between a poison and a tonic is the dose, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So water can be poisonous.
I'm not going to go eat foxglove.
Poison ivy, probably not good for your salad. So how much would you say you're saving on not purchasing these medications?
Oh my goodness. I have excellent health insurance because I work for a healthcare provider.
Okay.
But even the copay, even that $10 a month copays, I probably had 10 different things a month. So at least that. And then if you want to talk about savings, the food costs so much less when you're eating mostly brown rice and black beans and sweet potatoes compared to milk and dairy and fast food. And I guess milk and dairy would be the same thing, but all that processed food. Yes.
Meat is expensive.
Yes. It's so expensive. And, something that really woke me up is just the cost to the environment.
Yeah.
We don't even think about that. a lot of times, but you vote every time you buy food. Animal agriculture is the most destructive force to the environment, far above even the burning of fossil fuels. Yeah. So just by eating a diet right now, I have integrity because I eat a diet that doesn't hurt anyone. It doesn't hurt me. It's healing me. It doesn't hurt any animals. Nobody had to die for my dinner. Nobody had to be forced to work in a slaughterhouse and kill, all day long. And it's good for the environment. I'm helping save the planet, and that helps the people, because when there is environmental destruction, like a superstorm Sandy or Hurricane Katrina, the people who suffer are the vulnerable and the poor and the young and the old, And so I just feel like this is a diet where you have clean hands, as well as clean arteries. And again, there are so many reasons to go plant-based, and the only reason I can think of to not go plant-based, it'd be your appetite, and that will change.
Yeah.
We get used to what we habitually eat. So they say a little kid needs to taste something between 8 and 10 times before they like it, unless it's fruit, I would say.
Yeah.
But your tastes really change. The things that used to make me salivate now, if I smell like a greasy hamburger or I walk past, it literally turns my stomach.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. I mean, it just, and people always say, oh, I could never give up cheese or whatever. So give up everything but cheese.
Yeah.
Start where you are and just do your best. And if you have a bad day, just use a bad day as good information and make it better the next time.
Yeah. You'll be surprised with how far you go.
And just don't give up. It's not how long it takes to get there. It's just staying on the path. And if you think about if you were hiking up a mountain or something and you fell down, you wouldn't just lay in the dirt and cry and say, I guess I'm stuck here.
Hopefully not.
Exactly. You'd get back up and you just keep going, and it doesn't undo how far you got up the mountain.
Yeah.
But I think so many people do that. They're like, oh, I messed up, so now I just have to go back to eating what I was eating. And the thing is, you are better equipped now. You are that far up the mountain. You are so much better prepared to be successful. And so many people quit, right? But, maybe they can't see over the top of the ridge is the top of the mountain, and they quit when they're just right there,
Yeah, again, it's your brain working against you. You're falling back into that addiction response. Your brain is saying, no, I'm going to withhold dopamine so that you will give me this simple sugar that I'm addicted to.
And can we talk about dopamine? Because I believe that you need to replace that dopamine that you were getting from the high caloric density food. So I walk, and at first I would walk because, just to preserve my mobility and just to try to get over my diabetes and all that stuff. Exercise is huge for every system in your body, right? If you could have a pill that would give people what they get from exercise, it would be worth $1 million,
Yeah.
But it's a gift you can only give yourself. But now I walk for stress relief and for that dopamine, and because it feels good to walk, which I never thought. Boy, the first time I went for a walk, I remember I walked about possibly a block. Now, remember, I was 436 pounds. I walked about a block. I was cussing under my breath the whole time. It physically hurt. Every single step hurt. All I could think about was stopping. Few steps in, I was scary red-faced girl, huffing and puffing and sounding like Darth Vader. But I'm so glad. I am so glad that I did that. And I just thank the person that I was then for having faith in herself again, because it's so discouraging to fall so many times, it's so discouraging. And I'm so grateful that I said, nope, once more into the fray, I'm going to go for it again. I'm so glad that I took that first walk. And now I see myself walking 4 miles. It just blows my own little mind. And it feels good. And I walk my little furry personal trainer. I have my rescue dog, Hope, who's a 15-pound fluff ball. And
awesome.
She takes me for my walk twice a day. She's very good. But it really replaces the dopamine, and it really reduces the stress. And it's just so good for you on so many levels. I know the author Julia Cameron talks about a walking meditation. And I really find that to be so true for me. I work out my problems when I go for my walks. It's a very healing activity that we were never meant to sit. We're meant to be active and moving. And there's this whole thing called NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is just all your activities of daily living and moving around. And so other people that maybe have as much to take off as I did, it's really hard to even stand up. I remember I couldn't stand to stand, and it was really hard to take that walk when I first started. But if you can get up and move as much as you can, and then get up and move more tomorrow, boy, that's going to help you with your stress. It's going to help build your dopamine, and it's going to be so good for your body. They say sitting is now the new smoking. Like, it's very, very bad for you.
Yeah, we're definitely not meant to be sitting on our butts all day. We're meant to, we've evolved on like the plains of Africa, walking around and foraging food. Right?
Absolutely. And we're also not meant to use zero effort to get food, right? So
That's
think
right.
about our caveman ancestors. They spent pretty much all their time getting food until we got agriculture. And
and even then they were cultivating their own food. You're like,
right.
It's definitely a lot more work to be a farmer in a field without a tractor.
Exactly. And then contrast that to literally giving zero thought to the fact that you're going to be hungry at a certain time, and you just drive through a place and somebody hands you something through a window. Like, how much more energy conservation can you possibly have?
Well, and it's getting even worse. Like, we can, like, before if you wanted to go to the grocery store, you had to get your cart and walk around it. Now, if you go inside, you can get in one of those trolleys and get like the little motorized carts, or you can order online and they'll bring it to your car outside. And Amazon, I think, is getting where they'll deliver it right to your door. So we're actually getting worse and worse towards the energy needed to get food.
And, to eat the way that I eat, like, it's ironic to me. I live in Portland, Oregon. So there are about 75, the last time I counted, vegan restaurants, and not just like that offer something vegan, but that are vegan in the restaurant. And there's hardly any that I can go to. I don't choose to go to them because, unless they have a salad bar or whatever, but everybody puts oil, everybody puts a lot of salt, and I don't choose to eat that way. And so it's been a really cool thing, actually, preparing all my food, like lovingly taking the time to make the beans, to make the vegetables. I eat a lot of vegetables. Just that investment of time and energy in yourself is really important. And I think it gives you a very different vibration and feel from the food, much more nourishing, much more healing, because you're investing time and energy and love,
made with love.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So different than scarf it out of a paper carton and then go pollute something, by you have to throw away all that packaging and everything. That's another thing, is my garbage bill went down so much because I don't eat things in packages and cans and bottles. And now I just go to produce sections and the beans and rice section, and I'm done.
That's awesome. And so has your new way of eating impacted your children?
Absolutely. So my kids were raised vegetarian, and my daughter still is. So my daughter is 24 and she went away to college, and now she's in grad school, and it happens that her grad school is in the same town that I'm in. So she did move back home, but it's not like she's moved, living with mom or whatever. And my son is away at college, and he went vegan. And this is kind of funny. I thought, oh, he went vegan because of me, because I took off all this weight and healed all these health conditions and everything. And he told me, oh, Mom, I saw this YouTube from this guy named Dr. Bernard, and I'm vegan now.
That's awesome. Dr. Bernard from Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine.
Exactly. Yes. And so, you know what? I don't care how you get there, just get there. But I love it. You just never know when you're planting a seed that's going to grow later on.
Yeah.
And even though my daughter will, have cheese or mostly cheese outside the house, because this is a tip for other moms that want their families to eat healthfully. First of all, if that kid is over like age 12 or 13, you wouldn't want someone to tell you how to eat. You can't really change another person. You can't change your spouse. You can't really change another person. On the other hand, people are inherently happy to eat something that tastes good. So if you're making delicious food that just doesn't have to have any kind of animal products in it, I find that kids eat it without any struggle. I just never had a problem with it. And I made it so that they could make whatever choice they want when they're not at home. But I explained that I'm not going to be preparing anything with animal foods, and I'm not going to hurt animals. I'm not going to pay someone to hurt them for me. And you're free to make your own choices outside the home. And what I found is that she eats vegan 90% of the time, because it's way easier on people if you're making delicious food and you're feeding it to them. They like it.
Yeah.
So I think that if you did what I did and raised your kids on processed food and maybe feel bad about it now, you can control. You absolutely have the right to control what comes into the house, and you can't eat what isn't there.
Yeah.
So we have, lots of fruit, lots of delicious plant-based food. And if they want something outside of that, then they use their own money and their own resources to go get it. And of course, like I said, they're adults now, but I started this when they were, still in high school.
Okay.
And I went from vegetarian to vegan. So I find that as long as the food is yummy, your family will come along. But it's not okay, I don't think, to tell your spouse or something like that they have to eat like you. I mean, I don't know. It just, to me, I wouldn't want someone else to tell me I had to be paleo or I had to be whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But little kids, I definitely, if I had it to do over, I would have just had plant-based kids, period, end of story.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I couldn't give what I didn't have,
For sure.
At the time. I was so hopelessly addicted myself, and when I knew better, I did better. And that has to be okay, because I do have a lot of guilt about that, I do worry about that.
I think everyone who transitions, they look back on the past and think, oh man, I could have been so much better than I was.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And how much time did I waste, just being in pain, being miserable, feeling so bad about myself. Gosh. Yeah. If I get a time machine,
you would be the most rich person in the world.
Right. Absolutely.
So I ask my guests when they're on, if they were to boil it down to one piece of advice for path menders who are either on the fence or just about to transition, just starting their transition, what would that advice be?
Absolutely. My number one piece of advice is to be consistent and persistent. So consistent is doing everything you know how to do to the best of your ability and keeping that up every single day. The walk every single day, make it non-negotiable, make plant food non-negotiable. And then when you do inevitably have problems, learn to rest, not to quit. Learn to get right back on as soon as you can, and without drama, without beating yourself up. Think of it like how if a little baby was starting to walk, when they fall down, do you say, well, clearly you'll never be able to walk because you just fell down, and then you carry them around for the rest of it? No, you dust yourself off, you try again, and just stick with it. Stick with it. You are worth it. And if I could give this feeling of not feeling like a slave to food, give this feeling of not being, carrying around all those pounds of pain, every kind of pain in my body, feeling great, feeling free. If I could bottle that up or put it in a pretty gift box with a bow and give that to you, I would love to be able to do that. But it's a gift you have to give yourself, and just realize you are worth it, and you are so much stronger than you know. You're so much stronger than you know. So much of what we've thought has just been weak will, or, I can't control myself or something like that. If you could even give yourself 3 days of just eating very clean, unprocessed, plant-based diet, you will find that you feel so much better, and you will realize that it was the food.
Yeah. It
was the food that was doing it to you.
That's great advice.
Thank you. Well, it's been a long and winding road. I hope that somebody can benefit from my path. Now that's my goal, is just to help people and encourage people, and especially the people like me that have the long road, have the 100, the 200, the 300 to go.
Yeah. We
can do this, and we don't have to have gastric bypass, and we don't have to eat keto or paleo or all the things that so many doctors told us that we had to do. And
well, mending your path doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a straight path. It can definitely have some twists and turns, as long as you're continuing to put in the effort to mend your path and try to make a better you.
Yes. Right? Hallelujah for the winding path.
Sometimes winding is a little more fun.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I don't know if it was, I wish I could have made a beeline. I wish I could have been one of those ones that get it. And if you are one of those ones, bless you. But if I feel like some of it is that relapse is just part of the deal. And the quicker you can handle relapse, the faster you can stop beating yourself up, forgive yourself, and just get back on with it already. Yeah. is going to be so crucial to your success in the long run.
Well, it may be almost beneficial to have small so-called practice relapses with relatively minor issues, so that when inevitably you face some serious challenges in your life, that you're better equipped to be able to handle that.
And that is such a healthy way to look at it, because it is true that every time I made a mistake, it just gave me information that I was later able to use to say, I'm not doing that again. Yeah. And every time you do get better, they even say, like with smokers, even when people they have a relapse and they go back to smoking or something, every successive attempt after that they try to quit smoking, they're more likely to be successful. So I really think that's true with trying to make any positive change for your life, like take off pounds, or as long as you're persistent, you will win.
Yeah. Just never give up. Continue to try. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me and the Mended Path listeners here today, Heather.
It's been my pleasure.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Mended Paths Podcast at www.mendedpaths.com. Don't forget to check out the Mended Paths resource page at www.mendedpaths.com/resources. There, you'll find many resources that can help you on your journey back to better. See you all next time.
Visit mendedpaths.com and get back to better.